Good evening, everyone. Hope you're enjoying your dinner. Good dinner. Aaron has been working on it since early this morning, preparing. Thank you, Aaron. But I hope you enjoyed your first full day of our Scholars Retreat. We certainly enjoyed getting to know you, and not to mention showing off this amazing place that we get to work every day, including this amazing view. One of the things that President Reagan often talked about in his speeches was America as being a shining city on a hill. And if you look we have kind of a shining museum. It's a little hazy today, but it's still beautiful, and when the sun gets down there a little bit later, it should be a pretty beautiful sunset today. We see many similarities between President Reagan and you, namely your leadership, drive, integrity, and citizenship. You stood out among more than 13,000 student applicants this year to bear the distinction of GE-Reagan Foundation Scholar. You are also joining a network of roughly 115 GE-Reagan Foundation Scholars. On behalf of the leadership of the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation, the Advisory and Selection Committee, and our partner GE, we commend you on this very elite distinction. We are investing in you, and we are thrilled to honor your achievements during this retreat. You have already made a name for yourselves in high school, and now you are about to transition to your next great journey, college. We know this is an exciting time, and we want to join your family in setting you up for success on campus. We are pleased to have with us tonight two people who know a thing or two about making the most of your college experience. First, he is a new member to the GE-Reagan Foundation Scholarship Program Advisory and Selection Committee and spends his days nurturing talent at the college level for GE. From Indianapolis, Indiana, please welcome University Relations Leader, Global University Relations, GE Corporate, Mr. Tony Dennert. And Tony will be joined by one of our very own GE-Reagan Foundation scholars. She was awarded our scholarship in 2012 and recently graduated from Georgetown University with a bachelor's degree in foreign service, science, technology, and international affairs. So she was pretty busy. Originally from the appropriately named Charlottesville, Virginia, please welcome Charlotte Cherry. So you two come on.
Thanks, Tony.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. Hello.
Yeah, well, first off, thank you, Tony. And before we get started, you know, it's a privilege for the two of us to be here. You've been here before, so you get a double bonus here. To be at the library, to having spent the entire day with you. You know, for me personally, and I know the same, I think it's the same for everyone else, but a day that I think we'll always remember. You know, I was here last year or 3 years ago with our family, and I learned a lot. But today, going through the tours again and getting to talk to a lot of people, I really learned a lot more about President Reagan. So it's pretty humbling and makes me have a thirst to learn even more about President Reagan. So I'd also like just to thank everyone, the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation, the library, the staff, and everyone. And a special thank you to, I don't know where Aaron is. Oh, right there. What an amazing person. You know, through my process and being engaged, she's kept me straight and narrow, and I know she's done that for everyone else, but just amazing. So with that, we want to kind of kick it off. Again, we're both excited to be here, but if we could, just to kind of ground everyone, could you, Charlotte, just give everyone a little bit about your background before college or during college, where you're from, and what were you involved with during high school and up into college?
Sure. So I am from Charlottesville, Virginia, as was mentioned earlier. Not a coincidence. I was named after the town. My parents met there. And I just graduated from Georgetown. I guess my journey there, a lot of things have changed since high school, definitely. I think in high school I was really involved in a lot of community activities, and I think one of my main activities that I came out with was really doing a lot of filmmaking, which has been a really exciting part of my high school experience, and it gave me a lot of opportunities going forward because I think it's maybe a more unusual skill, so people were really excited about it. And I was able to kind of use that to get into I was using it to I wanted to learn how to do documentary filmmaking. I like telling people stories, and I feel like that's really kind of led me into a lot of other opportunities, and as a way to learn more about water management, which was what I was really wanted to get involved with, but wasn't necessarily as involved with before. And through film was somehow able to get there by going to conferences and being like, hey, I'll take pictures and video for you if you let me come to this. And that seemed to work out pretty well. So now I just graduated and I'm working at the Environmental Defense Fund in San Francisco, and for the summer, interning and doing research on water management in California. So it is really exciting to be out here.
Good.
Yeah. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, absolutely. First off, I have the best job in the company, hands down. Tony Denhart grew up about halfway between Indianapolis, Indiana, and Chicago. A little small farm town, and there was someone I was talking to earlier today that, after they left, they got their first stop sign. We have one stop light, and that's it in our town, but a big farming community. Once I graduated from high school, I went to Purdue University. Graduated with a degree out of the Polytechnic Institute in electrical, and I came to GE. And I came to GE as a field engineer, held a number of different roles over a 22-year period, wrapping up in the energy business before it delayered. And then I made a drastic change that I recommend to all of you that you do, and maybe not this role, but take those risks and make some of those moves. But I went to corporate HR. And how I got there was our recruiting model on campus is volunteer. The folks going back to campus, at least 95% of them, are in finance, in engineering, in HR, you name it, IT software. They're going back to campus to talk to you. They've walked it, they've been there, they can really get down into the details with you, and that really helps us differentiate ourselves on campus. So I had been the campus relations leader as a volunteer at Purdue for 4 years when I was approached to do this role, and I said no. And then they came back again, and so I did some due diligence, and I've never looked back. It's been one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life, and I love it. And the students in the audience here are one of the reasons that it really energizes me and motivates me, and just just what you bring to the table as we go through the selection process. I've said it earlier, I'll say it again, I'll never stop saying it. I'm humbleized, or I'm very humble, and I'm so glad I'm not competing with you. So hats off to you again. My wife's a Purdue alum. We met at Purdue. Our son's a senior at Purdue. Our daughter will be going to Purdue this fall, so we'll be a family of 4 boilers, and pretty excited about that. One thing I forgot to mention on the front end, congratulations again to all the scholars, but I also, the parents, the friends, and the family that are here, hats off to you. I am telling you, you have the top tier of the top tier, and it's what you've done and what you've instilled with them that got them there today. And yes, and scholars, I'm not trying to discredit your passion, your hard work and everything, but it's a combination. So again, congratulations. Thinking about what I just said and the selection process, one of the things that amazed me was how much you did or you're doing, how much you were involved with. Charlotte, thinking about that, from the time you transitioned, and I'm sure your resume and your application was just as loaded as all of the scholars out here, can you offer any guidance, to prevent the burnout? They're going to be rolling into college, they're going to be going at Mach 3, 4, whatever. Can you give them any guidance on from a college standpoint to avoid any burnout?
Yes. I think my advice is that it's really, really important to learn how to manage your time. And everyone says this, and it seems like very cliche, I think, about how to do it, but it's really, really important because you're going from, into a situation where you can literally go 24/7. There's always something going on campus. People stay up till all hours of the night, and there's always someone you could find to do something. It's not set up in the way that high school is, where you go to school for a set amount of time. So really, you can stretch out everything that you have into these like many, many hours that suddenly you have before you. And as I know from the fact that you guys are all here, you guys are all very high achieving people, and you want to be involved in everything and want to continue all of these activities and do really well in your classes. And I think that figuring out how to balance that in the best way is extremely important. So a lot of people will say that you can either you have like the 3 S's, which are sleep, social life, and school, and that you can only have 2 of them. But I don't think that's true. I think you can have 3, but it's also about learning how to distribute your time among them. So first of all, I think sleep is extremely important. You should definitely sleep. Do not sacrifice your sleep, because if you're working all of the time and just drive yourself too thin, you'll probably get sick, and it will not be helpful for anyone. But I also think that having a social life is very important, and figuring out how to be intentional with that. And social time can like just suddenly expand into large amounts of time that you didn't realize it was. So trying to be figure out what social activities and things are like the most important to you, and how can you do those in a way that is the most like meaningful and important for what you're trying to do in your life and who you want to spend your time with. And then as far as school, I think it's really important to understand and come to terms with the fact that coming out of high school, a lot of the people here probably are these like very top achieving people in your high school. And the truth is, when you go away to college, you're suddenly surrounded by a bunch of other people who are also the most high achieving people. And that can be really shocking, I think, if you're used to for me, I was used to being able to kind of skate by and not do that much work, and it would be fine. And suddenly I was at a school where like 50% of the people were in the top 3 people in their classes, or like valedictorians, and I was like, well, great. So now suddenly the scale is very different. So in terms of that, I think trying to be honest with yourself and figure out what your kind of ideal operating mode is. So what is actually your level of ability in the situation that you're in, and like how can you work hard and like do your best, but also not be comparing yourself to everyone else all of the time. Like what is that level where you're gonna work to achieve it, and like you're gonna do your best, and what is that like best level? And then don't like spend 10 extra hours for like a 1 point, 2 point increase in your grade, because you could spend those 10 hours balancing with other things. And so I think figuring out kind of what that level is really important. That was something that helped me a lot, of saying like, okay, if I work this amount, I will get this grade, and I'm happy with that, and I don't need to, I feel like that is a good representation of where I am, and it's not kind of worth working all of those extra hours if there are many other ways you can spend your time, and remember, sleep.
Nice.
And so you, I think, have a really good perspective on what it's like to work in such a large company like GE, and really what it takes to work in that sort of environment, and what kind of things are important for students to know going into a market with companies such as GE that are working all over the world. What are some recommendations that you have for students?
Sure, Charlotte. Tony had some fun facts. I think Joanne had some too, and I'm always about the facts. I always put out to students that it's pretty amazing that a GE-powered aircraft is taking off every 2 seconds. That's not the answer, by the way. So when I started with GE, we were operating in about maybe 50, 60 countries or so. Today, we're operating in over 175 countries. If you look at the revenue of the company, when I started, 70% was inside of the US. Today, 70% is outside of the US. So when you look at GE, we're a very global company. And as it relates to globalization, I think anywhere, any company you go to work for, you're going to be touching a global footprint. You're going to be somewhere around the world. Today, even more in this role today, there isn't probably I know there's not a week that goes by, if not a day that goes by, that I'm not engaging and interacting with my team around the world. And I love that. In my prior role, my first, couple decades, my engagement globally was minimal. And I wish I would have done something to make it more global, because I really appreciate the views of all of my peers from around the globe. And it really is, again, using that word again, humbling, because it's just neat. They bring a lot to the table, make me and our team all of our team look at our challenges and opportunities in different ways that we didn't look at in the past, or different approaches. If you want to be successful, you're going to have a global mindset. And I know a lot of you have already spent time overseas, and immersing yourself is critical to that. But it's not going to be a game changer if you don't go immerse yourself in another country, because there are so many ways that you can engage globally. With technology today, you can engage around the world, right? If you go to a university, they have so many opportunities to reach globally, and that could be as simple as getting on the phone, getting on a telepresence, getting on a Skype and engaging with them. But understanding their cultures, right? I mean, that's another one. I guarantee wherever you go to school, it's going to be a melting pot. So take advantage of your classmates and get to know them and understand what their cultures are all about, because it's going to give you an edge, right? I was talking to another parent about, whether you get an internship, whatever, but when you're graduating or when you're walking into your senior year, what do you want to do? What's your goal? Anyone? Get a job, right? And you have to have that edge over your peers, and having that global exposure, global immersion, however that is for you, it will set you apart. We opened up a new aviation facility that's assembling jet engines, the next generation jet engine in Lafayette, Indiana. And there's a section of that plant that it's our maintenance, repair, and overhaul that was brought out of the ground, a core team of 16 from 14 countries. And that plant leader, if he didn't have that global immersion, exposure, he would not have been able to rally that team and get them to come in. And if they couldn't have done that, it's been a significant impact to the company, more importantly, the customers. But Eric probably wouldn't have a job down the road. So I can't emphasize how important it is to get that immersion and exposure. Geopolitics is another one. And, being at President Reagan's library, that's one that, I'm really, and I've talked to a few people that have a similar interest. I love to understand what's going on around the world, right? You had that session this afternoon from 4 to 6, and I wish I could go through that entire session in your shoes, because all the different things that are pulling that ball in the middle and the decisions you make, it's amazing how the world impact, all the different areas of the world impact us here, and the same applies to all the different countries. So that's another one that I'd encourage you to have some thirst to learn about while you're out there. So with that, going back to Charlotte, and when you were back in school, what do you think, what was one of the things that was most important to you outside of the classroom, outside of college, shall we say?
Sure. So I wanted to kind of echo part of what you said as maybe one of my pieces of that, which I think that study abroad and being able to find opportunities to go abroad has really completely changed the way that my life, I guess, in the past 5 years, I've spent a lot of time internationally, and that's really shaped a lot of my independence and also ability to kind of work with a lot of different types of people. So if you have opportunities to do that, I would highly recommend finding ways, even if or to travel within the U.S. or just to go someplace new and really get to know what it's like to live in a different part of the world or a different part of the country. And my other main piece of advice, I think, of things that I learned outside of the classroom was really the importance of building relationships and networking. And as college students, you're just uniquely positioned to really ask people questions and to really find people to connect with who can answer those questions and who have experience in the field. And as college students, people will answer your questions. Whoever you ask, most likely they will say yes. And so I think that really being able to take advantage of that is so important, because you can email someone or call someone, find someone who's in the field that you're interested in or think you might be interested in, and reach out to them and ask if you can have an informational interview with them, if they will take 15 minutes and talk with you on the phone, and chances are they will probably say yes. And then you have this opportunity to talk to someone one-on-one, and it doesn't matter how infeasible it might seem that they would talk with you. I feel like if you put the effort in to find them, then they will likely, be a resource for you, and that can be really beneficial. And I think that doing informational interviews and building kind of a network of people that are around your interest area can add a lot of assistance as far as finding jobs and having people to vouch for you, but also just to like figure out what it really means to work in a particular field. Like, what does it actually mean to have a day in the life of someone who's a doctor or someone who, is a congressional aide or whatever job that might be? How do you find that person and like figure out what their life is actually like? So I think that would be my first piece of advice. I have called in the past, especially in the past maybe year and a half, I have called an absurd number of people on the phone, and they do not know who I am. And every time I think like there's no way this person is going to talk with me, but they usually do, and they're usually very, very nice and helpful. And I've had people say like, I will do whatever it is that you would like to help. Like, I will mentor you in any way that I can. And people really like to be asked about themselves, so that is a really wonderful way, I think, of finding supportive people and building that network. And the other thing is that as you go into college, you have a whole network kind of already built in, and you have professors and people who are at the school solely to help you. And so take advantage of that. Like, go to people's office hours. Don't only ask them for help on assignments that you feel like you did badly on. Like, go to their office hours when you don't need anything and ask them about their research, or visit with someone and ask about their life or how they got to where they are. And I think building those connections with professors who really have time to be there and have time set aside, a lot of times they really want people to visit them and they don't feel like they're fully taken advantage of. And I think some of the really rewarding experiences I had were, I went and asked the professors if they would read something that I had written for another class or for an application, and kind of build these relationships over time of getting them to give feedback. And by the end, I feel like I had professors who were really like part of my support system and were able to really, they knew me as a person, but it also helped me through these different processes and could really be good recommenders and good support people overall. So I think that a lot of people kind of get intimidated by professors or by going to talk with them, but they can really be a great resource. So I would definitely suggest that. And I definitely think that is it important to take, am I out of time?
No.
Okay. That also, in college there are a lot of different events and opportunities in the schools where there's like conferences or speakers, and going to those types of events and talking with people there and talking with the people that come into the school can also be a really great opportunity. And I think that if you're kind of genuine in your interest and can really express that to people, then they can see if you're excited. Like, if you're really excited about something, people can tell and they can sense that. And if you demonstrate that you're willing to put in this effort and have something that you would like help with or would like advice with, I think people will come in and like fill that void, and they will be there to support you. So I definitely think that that's the biggest thing that I've learned, that I don't need to be afraid that I'm putting someone out by asking them to write me a letter of recommendation, or that someone wouldn't want to talk to me because I'm a college student. I think it's quite the opposite, and people will really be there, and that they want to support you. And everyone who has gotten to that point, like all of those professors that you have to ask for recommendations, like they all had to do the same thing. They had to go ask someone for help too, and other people supported them along the way, and then you kind of pass it on to the next group. Yeah.
Beautiful. And I would echo one piece of that before you ask your question. Don't go try to develop that relationship the week before you need that recommendation letter. So I don't think I touched on we've got a portfolio of executive schools that we focus our recruiting on around the globe, and the number's about 100. And about half that's in the US, half outside, and I've got a third of that portfolio in the US. But there hasn't been a single faculty member during my travels, and I ask a lot of faculty members, and the question I ask is, if a student has developed a genuine relationship during your class and, sat up front, leverage those office hours, and they're right up on that next grade, whether they have a 79% or an 89%, would you bump them up? And every faculty member, every professor said yes. They wouldn't go on the record, nor would I ask them to do that. So, what Charlotte said is very, very important. And the network, it's all about the people.
Yeah, and professors have office hours every week. Like, there was a professor. There were two professors I just really wanted to get to know, and I wanted them to be my friends. And I was like, okay, well, my goal for the semester is I'm gonna go go to their office hours like every week and talk with them. And I would talk about things from class, or I would ask them about their research, and just kind of continued that relationship. And that was my sophomore year.
Yeah.
And by my senior year, I had done research with one of them in Belize, and he had, let me come down there. And then I stayed at his house and helped him with research in Texas, because he's now in Texas. And the other one was my thesis advisor, although my dean, when I told her that, laughed at me and was like, "Are you sure he's going to be your thesis advisor? He doesn't really help undergraduate students." I was like, "Yes, he will be. It will be fine." And I think because I kind of built that for so long and really continue to ask for help and continue to ask for advice, then you kind of just have a whole different type of relationship that can be hugely beneficial.
Super.
Yeah.
Super.
And so for you, so we're at the very beginning of this career journey, but you have been at GE for 27 years, so you kind of have a lot of tenure there, and I'm sure that things have changed a lot in your time there. So what advice do you have about how to handle, how have you handled all of the changes that have happened at GE during your time there?
Yeah, so I'm gonna start with a little story. I was traveling a month or two ago, and hopped in a taxi. And what are taxi drivers known for? Small talk, right? Starting the conversation. And the taxi driver said, "So who do you work for?" And I said, "GE." "Oh, the company that makes light bulbs." It's like, yeah, but it's only 1% of our revenue. "Oh, well, then it's that company, you make appliances, right?" Well, if you've been following the news, which we're always in the news, it seems like, we sold GE appliances to High Air. So I said, "No, we're not in the appliances business anymore." He's like, "Well, I thought your company did financing, right? Commercial real estate, consumer finance." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, we kind of do, and it's very small now. It's over the past year or so, we've been going through the disposition of 90% of GE Capital. So our company's evolving, and the reason I tell you that story is, I've been with the company 27 years, and the company does not look anything like it did when I started 27 years ago. And that's a good thing, right? I'm comfortable with it. You will be going into, or you are in a world of profound uncertainty, period. And you need to be comfortable with it. If you're not comfortable, then you know what, get comfortable. When the first part of GE Capital that we IPO'd out was consumer finance, which is the private label, credit cards and some other things. And I was talking to a career center director. And what we wanted to do was make sure the career centers around the country, around the globe, were aware of what we were doing. So if students had questions, they could answer them. And the career center director said, "Well, what other parts of GE are you going to sell?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know that answer. And if I did, I couldn't talk about it, right?" And so what I'm getting ready to say applies to everyone in this room, friends, family, parents. And I told the career center director, I said, "This is a learning opportunity for the students." And he said, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "This is the world they're going into." And I said, "Mr. Career Center Director, you need to take off some of the bubble wrap, and you need to let them go." So that's one thing, Parents, you need to provide the guidance, but be very careful on how much bubble wrap is out there. It's okay if they fall, because they'll get back up and they're going to be stronger. So that's one part. Another one, who's heard of Kodak? BlackBerry? Yeah. Boy, their world got turned upside down, right? Kodak, BlackBerry. I mean, they're really not much. There's not much left, right? There's a little bit, but not much. It's a disruptor, right? The world is full of disruptions, and that's good too. Think about Hilton hotels, over 600 rooms that they've pulled together over 95 years. Compare that to Airbnb, 1 million over 5 years, right? Huge disruption. Another one, how many of you remember GM's ignition recall, right? That took, 5 years, I think? 2 years. 2 years to fix and $41 billion. I know everyone's heard of Tesla, because it's not too far away. They had a recall, suspension fix, or a suspension problem. How long did it take them to fix it? Anyone? What do you think? 2 minutes, software upgrade. So this is the world you're in, and it's ever changing. I've talked to a couple people here today, and back in 14, the end of 14, maybe it was the end of 15, we had been going through a lot of changes in the company. And I said, wow, we just went through a lot. A lot's going to execute, and it was 15. It was the end of 14, we were running into 15. And I said, well, it's going to be a busy year, but we'll flatten out. And then I was on spring break, and the GE Capital announcement came out, and I'm like, wow. And the rate of change that we're in today is the slowest it's ever going to be in. Scholars, just be aware of that, because you're in for a ride, and the rate of change is not a straight line, it's exponential. And it's just, be comfortable with it. It's okay. I mean, if I was not comfortable, I would not be working for the company I'm with today. And if you're looking at a company that's not changing at the same rate the world is, or faster, then I would be concerned. I was talking to Tony about this. Their lights are going to be dimmer, or they're not going to be around. And if we hadn't changed over the 124 years that we've been around, we wouldn't be here today. And it's about adapting. You either adapt or you die. And the other thing I would say is, with that change and learning to adapt, you need to evolve yourself. Okay? So.
I can kind of jump off of that. One more thing. So I think that you guys have this unique opportunity where there's so much change happening, and there's so many opportunities that you have going into school. And I think that there's a lot of pressure to really push, narrow yourself in and be like, oh, this is what I'm going to be, this is what I'm going to do. And I think that while it's important to, through college, kind of find a direction and find those things that you're really passionate about, don't be afraid to try some other things that are outside of your wheelhouse at first, and expose yourself to some new opportunities that might be completely different than what you thought you wanted to do. I went on my freshman year, I joined a bunch of clubs that I knew nothing about, that I had never done before. I joined a investment group and like a newspaper group. I mean, I just joined a bunch of clubs that were not the ones that I would have traditionally chosen, that were things that I had done before. And while I didn't stick with any of those, I thought that it was a really good exposure, because by doing that, I was like, oh wait, I definitely do not want to do any of those things. Or I went to a lot of conferences and things like cybersecurity that I knew nothing about, and I didn't understand half of what they said at the conference. But by doing that, I kind of exposed myself into something new and got to see whether or not I was at all interested in that. And by senior year, I attended, like this, I'm very interested in agriculture and food and water, and I attended a bunch of conferences and events that were all in that area. But by kind of going in this more circuitous route along the way, I was able to test out some new things and see if I was interested in those. So I don't think you need to know exactly where you're going yet, and it's okay to kind of try out some of those things and be unsure at first, because it kind of gives you more freedom to explore things that you might not even know about. You might not know that they exist yet.
Are there a couple other points that you'd like to share with the scholars that might be helpful for them?
I think I'd rather do questions, actually.
All right, that's fair.
I think
all right, so what we'd like to do now is just open it up. I mean, scholars first, but parents also. Any questions? Mm-hmm. So taking it from a perspective of someone that just wrapped up college, spent 4 years going through what you're getting ready to go through, to someone...
And scared my parents a lot along the way.
Yeah. To someone that's recruiting and hiring the students for internships and full-time roles.
Can you tell a story about a time when you did something, even though it scared you, and when you wanted to say no, you chose to say yes?
Sure. I feel like I'm in an interview. It's like, tell me a time when. I would think that for me, one of the most kind of transformative experiences I had was also one of like the most difficult. And the summer after my freshman year, I went to South Africa for 2 months on this program to build a socially responsible business, which I knew I had only been learning about because of all these random events that I had been attending my freshman year to learn about social entrepreneurship that I did not know about before. And so they sent me off, and I was horrified of going to this place that I was completely unsure about what I was going to find. And the program was not super well organized. So I ended up in the middle of nowhere, South Africa, where I don't even think we were like not on Google Maps, and we didn't know where we were, and neither did our parents. And we kind of just had to fly there on our own and like show up in this random place. And then we were supposed to form groups of community members in this village that we were living in all of a sudden and develop a social business with them. So I knew nothing about social enterprise really, except that I had learned in the past couple of months by attending conferences at Georgetown. And I was completely just unsure of how this was going to go. And I'm definitely the type of person that I like to know all of the information going in. Like, I want to know how everything's going to go and just not have a lot of uncertainty. And this was a situation that was completely uncertain. I had no idea what I was supposed to do, and I was confused the entire 2 months that I was there about what I was supposed to be doing. But I was like, well, I guess I'm just gonna have to do this, and I don't have a lot of guidance as to what the next step is, but yeah, along each step I had to figure out what I was going to do without any information at all. And so I made it through that experience by just kind of going with my gut and being like, okay, well, I'm just gonna take action and I'm gonna do something and make a decision without all of the information. And that was really horrifying to me because I wanted to ask questions, I wanted to get all of the information and have someone to tell me like, oh, this is the next step, this is what you're supposed to do. And after returning from that and surviving, and I made it through, and I came back and I was supposed to be leading like a student board, and my leadership style had completely changed through that experience, because then I came into the environment, I was both like able to kind of have more fun with it because I wasn't as stressed that I needed to know everything, and also that I was much more comfortable making decisions without knowing all of the information, which I think is a really important thing to learn. But sometimes you really have to be thrown in and like pushed in a way that's very uncomfortable in order to get there and to have that kind of change. Because if I had gone onto the board without having had that experience, I just knew, like I could tell that my style of leading it would have been completely different. So that's one of my...
So with that, a couple of my words of wisdom were, if you're going to risk, if you're going to take risk early, right? And if you're not stretching yourself like Charlotte was with that 2-month journey in South Africa, then you're not learning. So, I mean, she walked right into that. So you've got to stretch yourself. Who else?
I was just wondering if you attended the New York Summit, and if so, can you explain some of the highlights of this?
Sure. Yes, I went this past year, which I was really excited to go to their campus there. It's beautiful, and you feel like you're at a retreat and want to stay for like weeks on end, but they only let you stay for 2 days. So I think it was really interesting. So we did a lot of leadership evaluation and like understanding different styles of leadership, which I think was one of the highlights. And actually at my internship now, we're planning on doing a similar testing like within our group, and I have already done that kind of process. And so kind of figuring out what your leadership style is and how you interact in the space and in these different situations. And also I think one of the things that struck me was meeting all of these people from GE who had been there for over 15 years. Almost everyone I think I met had been there for such a long time, and seeing their commitment to the company was really exciting, and to hear their advice coming from a very different perspective. And one, I don't think I know very many people who have worked at a company for that long, so that was a really interesting thing to learn more about. And so I think like the leadership style stuff was some of my favorite. And the other highlight is there is a ton of food. There's food everywhere. There's just so much food and unbelievable. Yeah, there's like fully stocked kitchens and like really, just a lot of food. So that was definitely a highlight.
Yeah. It's a coffee shop too.
I was like, I can't eat all of this food in 2 days. I don't know what you're expecting of me. And just ate the whole time.
Other questions?
Yes.
Other than the money from GE and the foundation, did you get any other assistance during your 4 years from GE?
So let me add a little bit there. I shoot straight, and I don't know Aaron, Tony, prior to this retreat. I don't know. Gary was out here last year, right? Mm-hmm. But what we're going to do, I'll be, the goal of the Leadership Summit is to roll each scholar through it once during your collegiate career. And so this fall or this August, I will be out there. We're going to have some things as you walk into the fall, a webinar as you're walking into college to prepare. So, one of my words of wisdom is get to the Career Center, have a resume ready as you walk into college, right? And go to the Career Center and refine it. And it's going to take more than one time. It's probably going to take 2, 3, maybe even 4 times. But it goes back to one of Charlotte's points about networking, right? It's not only the faculty and the administration that you might get engaged with at the university, but the Career Center. And it goes back again to getting a job. But it's like riding a bike. The first time you ride it was tough. I mean, I crashed and burned many times, but every time you do it again, you get better, right? So every time you go back to that Career Center and you refine that resume, or you do mock interviews, or you do some of those information-seeking interviews with someone that's an alum that works for a company that you think you want to work for, get out there and do that. So, you know, in the fall, we're going to have a webinar to try to help guide you with some of those pointers. In the spring, we're going to do the same. So our level of engagement is going to go up. I'd say that our level of engagement with the scholars up through now probably hasn't been to the level I want it to be. And that's one of the reasons I'm here today. And we're going to make it better, and we're going to help you out.
And I would say I personally think that in some ways, I mean, I was only the second year of Scholars, and I think to some extent I feel like I served as a good guinea pig for a lot of GE-Reagan events and programs. So I was involved in like the advisory board, which I was trying to kind of come up with more ideas about how we can engage scholars further. And I think that that is something that could definitely grow and try to figure out what resources could be provided. And I also did part of the leadership in the American Presidency program for a couple of weeks and kind of got a feel of what that was like. And I think there are, you know, and the Leadership Summit I think was a great opportunity. I think to some extent it's, I think that you could probably engage further based on what you want to get out of it. I think that it's like a community of people, and you can kind of meet a lot of people from different places. And that's what I really enjoyed about the summit too. I think actually one of the highlights is that you get to meet people from a lot of different years, and that was really exciting to me because I kind of knew people from Facebook but didn't totally know them that well, and getting to meet them in person was really exciting to see what other people were doing. And so I think like engaging through the Facebook page, and Aaron wishes us all happy birthday and sent us care packages for finals, and so there was definitely some care put in by them for us. So I feel like those were definitely some of the highlights for kind of how I have engaged with the program.
Great question.
More questions?
Others?
All right, so like us being here, we all know that we're scholars and everything. And so what does it mean to, like, after you leave this place to be a GE-Reagan scholar?
What does it mean? I mean, to me, why I was really excited to come back is that I think for me, the people that I met in this retreat and meeting the other scholars, I felt like it was such one of like the most kind and like down-to-earth people or group of people that I had ever met, and just having all of these people who are really engaged in the work that they do. And I think if you talk to people, everyone's really humble, so they don't tell you, but like all the things that they're actually involved with, it's really, really impressive to kind of see the group that's here. And so I think trying to meet, for me it was interesting to meet people that were all over the country who were doing such a variety of different things, but I knew that they were all engaged in a really deep way. So I think having that network of people was something that I really enjoyed. I mean, I don't necessarily know that it played a huge role in kind of my like college identity or something like that, but I think that having this group of people together that are doing wonderful things is really exciting, and trying to, you know, keep up with people and see what people accomplish down the road.
Any parents have a question or two, or any other students, scholars?
Did you ever change your major?
I did not change my major, but I did, well, I guess I did change my major, but not since I went to college. So I took a gap year, and so when I applied to college, I was convinced that I was going to do culture and politics and do like humanities work. I was completely convinced. And my senior year of high school, I went on a trip to Ghana, actually to make a film, so another way that I used film to get somewhere. And while I was there, I was making this film about my hometown is sister cities with this city in Ghana, and we were making a movie about our relationship, and our city was coming in to try to build this library in our sister city. And while I was there, I was interviewing people in the community and teachers and asking them about what their town was like, and for this documentary. But in the meantime, I just realized, but from talking with them and from seeing the community, that they were coming in to build this kind of high level, like, we want to improve education and improve literacy, while in reality, the town that we were in had no sewer system, really spotty electricity, and no running water. And so for me, I just felt like this was this just blatant issue that wasn't being addressed, and I was like, well, there's this lack of basic infrastructure here that is really, really significant, and rather than imposing this, like, oh, we're going to build a library, you're not meeting like the basic needs of people. And so coming into that, I felt completely inept. I was like, well, I have no skills that would help me with this. I have nothing that I could use to address this issue that I see. And so that kind of pushed me to consider taking a much more technical approach. And that was what kind of sparked my interest in water resources engineering and the more engineering track, because I was like, that's a technical skill. But at the time, this was newly exposed to me. And then I spent a year abroad where I attended different water conferences, and I talked to a lot of engineers, and I applied to a couple of different schools that had engineering programs, and decided that I wasn't positive that that was the direction I wanted to go yet. So I still decided to go to Georgetown, that has no engineering program, and but I changed my major. And when I went in, I wanted to do science, technology, and international affairs, which is the only program in the School of Foreign Service that requires any math or science. So it was really the only way that I could even take some of the classes that were more engineering focused. So I ended up taking all of my math prerequisites for engineering and looking into more graduate level programs for that. But I also wanted to continue exploring and seeing whether that was the direction I did want to go. So I did know going into college that was what I wanted to do, but I also wanted to kind of like leave it open and kind of see through these different classes that I took if that was the direction I ultimately wanted to go. And now here I am 5 years later, and I'm still going the same direction. So I feel like it's a safe bet at this point that is more my focus. But it kind of changed because of an experience that I had, and then was able to pick this different path. And I did a lot of other things, like I did the social entrepreneurship stuff, and then I focused a lot on renewable energy for a while, and then kind of went back to this like agriculture and water, which is where I am now. So it was a little more of an evolution, but still kind of within the same area.
Super.
So when our kids opened that letter, I know, that famous day they'll never forget, and jumped up and down and yelled and like they did. So, no way, like how in the world? And think of 13,000 applicants, incredible kids throughout the country. There's 20 kids here now, or 18 right now. What set them apart? What was the main thing that set them apart for you to choose them?
So can I walk through kind of how we got from 13,000 to 140 down to where we are today, or really 13,000 down to 20? So there's an outside firm that took that over 13,000 down to about 140. And then the committee split up the candidates, and then we used a rubric, right? And that's on paper, right? So, what you put in your application, everything you had there was the starting point. So, with students, when they're going to do 2017, you've got to start somewhere, right? And it's your application, it's everything you've done. But the Skype interviews, that was a game changer, right? And Aaron was very adamant that we do it via Skype, not by the phone. And I have to commend you, Aaron, for pushing so hard, because having that dialogue. One of my questions, if I Skype interviewed with you, one of my questions was failure. And I'll walk all of you through on what I was looking for, because I was very vague and I stopped, right? And I wanted you to tell me about a time you failed, and I just stopped, because I wanted you to tell me the time. I wanted you to walk me through how you persevered through it, right? And I also wanted you to tell me what you learned, so if you came across that same challenge again, you wouldn't fail. And that's what we are looking for, and I know that's what the foundation's looking for. So, doing your homework, making sure you're prepared, being comfortable, right? Everyone I interviewed, they were relaxed, and again, I wouldn't want to ever compete with them, but they did a really good job. But I would say that Skype interview, you get through the rubric, you get that down, but having clear and concise answers, being professional, if you needed, there were a few times they stepped back, the scholar stepped back to kind of compose and bring their thoughts together, and that's okay. When I were in your shoes, scholars, I was boom, 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 go, 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 and that's one of the things that I've learned that I still to this day I'm trying to get better. But what differentiated them? What was on paper, what they did, how sincere they were, right? It wasn't a student going to Glassdoor and seeing what our interview questions are for our financial management program. Scholars, we can see right through that. And, it was, you really you're engaged and involved, and it wasn't any sugarcoating. So, I hope that answers your question, but the scholars, they really had walked it. They've been in the life with the experiences, the community service, it was all there, and it was more than a piece of paper. Because our son, he's like, well, if someone could really snow you with an application, right? You could put stuff on paper, and that's true, but when it comes down to the Skype interview, we can read through the paper.
I think you can tell if people are passionate and if people are very involved in their communities because they really want to engage and really want to make a difference in them. And I don't know, from reading everyone's bios every year and the people that I've met, it's just amazing to see. I think it draws such a diverse group. The people that the scholarship committee picks, I think, are so diverse in their interests and their passions, but it's people who are really excited about their thing, whatever that thing is. And my friends, I have friends from my year who are doing just such a wide range, from engineering to music to, library sciences and stuff that are not at all what I'm doing, but you can see that their excitement about that, but also their excitement to use it in a positive way.
You as recruiting a lot of young people, what are the key things that you're looking for?
Yeah, so the question was, as GE's out recruiting students for our internships and our entry-level roles, what are we looking for? And, we recruit, more and more companies are hiring rising sophomores, so between after your first year, so that's one thing to keep in mind. So as you're younger, it's tough, right, to know what you want to do, and it's tough for companies to make a bet on someone early in their collegiate career, but we feel at GE it's important. It's not every division that's recruiting that early, but a lot of them are. But what are we looking for? That first year, we're going to look back on what you did in high school, right? If you're going to a career fair as a freshman, you don't have a GPA yet. So what do we have to rely on? Your high school GPA, and that's a pretty good indicator of how you're going to perform in college. So we look at those, what you did in high school leading up. We're also looking at what are you starting to get involved with your freshman year, right? Have you taken that step to go to the call-outs and get engaged, right? So those are some of the things, as you walk into the career fairs, whether it's your first year or third year, it's not about quantity, it's about quality, right? And what I mean by that is, as a freshman, pick 3 or 4 companies that you think you're interested in working for, right? That have a role that you think you want to do. And at GE, and it's not going to be the same across the board, but we understand that you may not know 100% what you want to do when you grow up. Step back 5 years ago and I completely changed. So you could say I never knew what I wanted to do. But do some of that due diligence, research the company, answer some of those simple questions about the company. Don't walk up to a company and say, so what do you do? I've had students walk up and ask me, so what could I do at GE? What do you guys do, right? So do some of that research, pick 3 or 4 companies and go after it. And mom and dad, I'm sorry, my wife said the same thing, that we didn't want our son to be gone that first summer, and Rhonda's gonna say the same thing about Nicole. But you've heard me say it before, you'll hear me say it again, you gotta have an edge, right? And we were talking earlier, internships give you an opportunity to experience what you think you wanna do, and it's probably gonna be what you wanna do, but in some cases, it may not be what you wanna do. And that 10 to 12-week trial run for you as well as the company is a great way to figure out and validate whether or not it's really what you want.
But also reach out to people. When
Yeah.
I applied for GE stuff this year, for actual jobs, but I reached out to someone I knew from the scholarship committee, and then they put me in touch with someone who was in the department that I wanted. They put me in contact with someone who was actually doing the program that I was applying for, and I talked with like 8 or 9 people from GE in the period of maybe a month or so, and talked with all of these, reached out to them, emailed them, called them, and then one of the girls that I spoke with, she called me back multiple times and was like giving me updates on who she had talked with about my resume and who she had communicated with on my behalf. And so you can also kind of get some connections before going to the career fair or after going to the career fair, like find someone online within the company and reach out to them and try to talk with them about what they do, because I think it's a big advantage to be able to actually talk with them too, and not be one of the hundreds of people you might meet at a career fair also. If you can meet with someone one-on-one and go to their office and talk with them, then that can definitely help too.
Yeah, and to add on, so companies will have information sessions. Go to those information sessions, listen to what the company has to say, stay after, and go talk to the representatives from the company. I mean, because that's going to do a couple things. One, it's going to help differentiate you and give you that edge. You're going to get to know a little bit more about the culture of the company and the people, right? I mean, in that short amount of time you're with them, I mean, you're going to get a feeling on whether or not you feel comfortable or you kind of connect with them. So the more you can do to connect with the employees of the company, the better chances you're going to have of knowing whether or not you will fit within that company.
And if that person doesn't personally do what you're interested in, you can ask them to put you in touch with someone that is doing what you're interested in, and likely that person will talk with you. And really, you can call anyone.
Yeah.
You can call anyone.
The worst question, I mean, Charlotte hit on it a number of times, and bless your heart, because I totally agree. The worst question that you can ask is the question you don't ask, right? It's usually, what's the worst thing someone's going to say? Right, but odds are, I mean, one, if they're on campus recruiting or wherever, they're going to say yes. I mean, when I took the volunteer role as a campus relations leader for GE at Purdue, I had a couple goals. One was to get our chairman there, and another one was a major research collaboration. The dream was to get a plant there, and I was very lucky that we got the plant there. That was just by luck. But when I said I wanted to get the chairman there, someone said, well, why do you want to get him there? It's like, well, and it kind of put a fire in my belly that I'm going to make it happen. And then when, Joanne and I were talking about Mitch Daniels, who used to work in the Office of Management and Budget, who was the governor of Indiana, he became the president of Purdue, and it was perfect timing. And I won't go into that story, but we made it happen, and you just got to go after it.
Yeah, but I've called an extreme number of strangers in the past couple of years, and you just introduce yourself and you're like, hey, I read this about you and I wanted to talk with you more, and I'm interested in doing this, and they will probably say yes. I think I had one person say no, and they just said, I'm extremely busy in the next month, and I gave them a very short time frame, and they were like, no, I'm really, really busy, but like he still sent me job announcements and said I could apply to them and stuff. People don't really say no, even if they're complete strangers and don't really understand who you are or anything. You can still talk with them.
Yep. How are we doing on time, Aaron?
Probably out.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.